So I've had to make some really big decisions in my life before. Like, I've had to make decisions about whether or not to leave a 9 to 5. I've had to make decisions about whether or not to stay or leave a long term relationship. I've had to make decisions about whether or not to leave a friendship when I felt betrayed. I've had to make decisions about how to heal from childhood disappointment. I've had to make decisions about making big investments in myself, making investments in my business. I've had to make multiple big decisions over the years, as I'm sure many of you have too. And I've also, being a health coach, noticed something amongst many students and many clients, which is that oftentimes the reason for their stress and their overwhelm is not necessarily because their circumstance is so unique that it requires them to be in a state of pain or suffering for an extended amount of time. But one of the things I've noticed from coaching individuals through chronic stress is that part of the reason that the situation becomes stressful for so long is because there's a decision that needs to be made. There's a decision that maybe is being avoided. There's a decision that maybe we are dragging our feet about because it gives us anxiety. And so those tough decisions, believe it or not, are often at the root of our chronic stress. Often at the root of our chronic stress. And so here's what I came to tell you today. What I came to tell you is this: less stress and overwhelm is on the other side of difficult decisions. And I'm also going to tell you how I make difficult decisions, because I know it's not easy sometimes, but we also have to understand that stress kills. Now, while stress is a regular part of life, y'all know I say this all the time. Acute stress is what we're supposed to be accustomed to. Chronic stress is what we should be running head first thing away from, right? And so I want to make sure you guys understand the importance of making difficult decisions and how to do it. So I thought it would be super cool if I share with you my process, and maybe it'll help some of you so that we don't have to prolong stress. Now, I mentioned that I've made several big decisions over my life, and I've also had multiple clients who had to make several big decisions. And that decision making can be hard if you're naturally an overthinker, if you're naturally a researcher and you like analysis paralysis because you research yourself to death, if you're naturally someone who prefers to have somebody else tell you to do what to do versus you running the show and you being ahead of the decisions. And let me tell you why decision making is so hard. Decision making is so hard because we don't want to be responsible for the outcomes of our decisions. That's also why entrepreneurship is so hard. That's also why being a CEO is so challenging. It's because we oftentimes don't want to be responsible for the consequences of those decisions. And so I understand it completely when individuals have apprehension, when individuals delay analysis paralysis, because the consequences of those decisions we have to live with, we have to sit with, we have to be responsible for. But the truth of the matter is, if we want to optimize our health, if we want to live a long time, if we want to be free from chronic stress that kills us slowly, we have to get accustomed to making decisions, and we have to get accustomed to making decisions quicker than maybe we are normally used to. So that's what we're talking about today. I'm going to break down for you guys my personal process for making really hard decisions. And I've done this multiple times over the years. Again, leaving a 9 to 5 from a secure state of Michigan job, leaving long-term relationships, healing from childhood disappointment, losing weight, and having to make decisions on what it takes to keep the doggone weight off, right? We don't just want to lose the weight. We want to never find it again. So whether your decision is in the area of relationships, your health, your career, your finances, investing in yourself, whatever that may be, I would love for you to get accustomed to doing that. So that's what we're talking about today: how to make tough decisions. I'm going to give you my process for doing so that you can feel safer, so that you can eliminate chronic stress for yourself. Good morning. What's up, regulars? What's up, Malika? What's up, Tamika? What's up, Lachey? Good morning, everyone. As I drop this nugget today, I would love to hear from you what resonates and which one of these steps you're going to take if there's a situation in your life where you need to make a decision. All right, where you need to make a decision. Let's get into it. I'm sipping on, I got a different blend today, y'all. Let me tell y'all what I'm sipping on today. So I got my tea. And I have lemon peel. This is real medicinal. I got it from an apothecary in California, in Southern California, last year. And so it's like real lemon peel and herbal tea blend, non-caffeinated. I got it in my signature podcast mug that my podcast editor sent to me maybe going on 2 years ago when she first started editing my podcast. This is, so I'm drinking loose tea today, y'all. And so when I have my loose tea, I have my little thingy here that I put my loose tea in. And so that's what I'm sipping on today. So this is real, like, get with it. You know what I mean? Like, you got to get on my level, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So this is my herbal lemon peel, non-caffeinated lemongrass tea today. I don't know what it's good for. Mostly the soul. It's good for the soul. Let's get into it. How to avoid stress. So you guys have heard me say that chronic stress kills, right? Chronic stress kills, and decisions kill stress. I'm going to say it again. Chronic stress kills and decisions kill stress. So what if I told you that on the other side of your stressful circumstance is a decision waiting to be made? Like the peace that you long for, the peace of mind that you long for, the joy, the happiness that you long for is likely on the other side of a tough decision. And so let me tell you guys a story. Many years ago, I was trying to make a decision about something in our business. We had a program and I was trying to make a decision about it. And I was really torn. Because this was my baby, right? And I was really trying to decide which direction I should go in and whether or not we should keep the program. And I've had to make multiple business decisions, as you could probably imagine, in the last 10 years that we've been in business. And it was a bit stressful because I was getting overwhelmed in business, right? We were doing group coaching programming. We were doing one-on-one coaching. And so I was trying to decide which decision to go in business. And so I had a coach at the time, and I went to my coach, and I asked her opinion about whether or not I should continue with this program or shut it down. She gave me her opinion, and if she didn't tell me whether I should or shouldn't, she told me how to create a circumstance in which I could make a good decision. And I thought that was a super dope recommendation. So that's what I want to do for you today. I went to my coach and I asked her, I'm debating on whether or not I should keep this program. We've had this program for about 4 years now, and I'm not sure what to do. And she gave me a gift that I didn't even know was a gift, but now I'm going to re-gift it to you guys. And she helped me to create conditions for good decisions to occur. So what I want to share with you today is how I create conditions for decision making. Okay. And so there's several things that I do, and I do either all of these things or a combination of these things when I'm trying to decide on something. So if I'm trying to decide on whether to launch a new program in our company, whether or not I'm trying to decide on whether or not to make a big investment in myself that might cost thousands of dollars, whether or not I'm trying to decide on whether or not I need to exit out of a relationship. I've had to exit out of friendships. I've had to exit out of romantic relationships. I've had to distance myself from individuals who weren't aligned with me in that season of life. And so those are big decisions. I've had to make giant career decisions. I've had to make decisions about my health. You can only imagine a Black girl from Detroit talking about going vegan. Like, you mean you never gonna eat that again, right? But at the same time, you're feeling how good you feel, and you got to make a decision, right? And so y'all drop decisions in the chat. A decision is on the other side of your peace. The decision is what's standing between you and your peace. Drop decisions in the chat, and I'm going to run down, and I would love some note takers. To drop these things in the chat as I list them off. Um, but decisions are what's standing between you and your peace, you and your freedom from chronic stress. I'm telling you, it's decisions. All right. And so let me tell you how I create decision making conditions in my life. All right. So here's the first thing. Now, depending on how involved, or should I say sophisticated, sophisticated the decision is, it might be an emotional one, especially if it's tied to relationships. Thank you, Anthony. Especially if it's tied to relationships. So the very first thing I do to create a condition for good decision making to occur is I wait and allow my emotions to level out. I wait and allow my emotions to level out. So what that means is sometimes something can happen and it becomes a milestone or pivotal moment. So for example, many years ago, I used to live in China, and I was on my weight loss journey and at that time. And so I had already lost maybe 40 pounds, y'all. And I was like slowly, I've lost a total of 65. And I was about 35, 40 pounds into my weight loss, maybe more. I might have been at the maintenance stage where I was maintaining it. But I had a friend at the time, and we were actually best friends. And she was into health and fitness and the gym. I think at one point she even like rented out a gym or bought a gym. Like she was really into health and fitness. And I remember there started being some friction in our relationship as I was on my weight loss journey. And I remember I had abs at the time, and I was like showing off my abs on social media, and I was all hype about it. And I remember like she started acting kind of weird. She started acting weird. And so when I got back to the United States, I remember when I was in China, she stopped talking to me. Like she stopped talking to me as much. And so when I got back to the United States, she ended up reaching out to me, and we had a conversation, and she was like, I just don't understand why, people are making such a big deal out of your weight loss and your body. I've been into health. I've been into fitness for a long time. And admittedly, I want to admit that I was jealous. Right. And I was like, what? Like, it was so shocking to me. But kudos to her for being super mature and admitting how she was feeling. Right. And so she admitted that she was jealous. She admitted that she was in her feelings about the attention I was getting on my weight loss journey. And so the first thing that came up in my spirit was a big giant F you. Like, I'm out of here. I don't want to be in a friendship with anybody who is jealous. I like kudos to you for admitting it. That's super mature, instead of like continuing to ghost me and be weird and have the energy be weird. However, I was feeling like I don't want anything to do with this, but also I was like, I could pop off when I want to at that time in my life, right? And so the first thing that I had to do to make a decision about moving forward in this friendship was I had to wait and allow my emotions to level out. I had to wait and allow for me to start back thinking in a better and a healthier frame of mind. Because y'all know when something first happens, your initial reaction is usually an emotional one. So the first thing I had to do in order to move forward was wait and allow my emotions to level out, rein my emotions in. That doesn't mean I stop feeling. We're human. We're going to continue to feel. However, be very careful with making decisions in a heightened state of emotion. And that's what I had to do. I had to make sure I wasn't making decisions in a heightened state of emotion. So the very first thing I do to create conditions for good decision making is I wait and allow my emotions to live. So whatever I'm feeling, anger, sadness, whatever it is, the range of emotions, feel it and allow yourself to feel it as long as you need to. And don't make any decisions when you know you're still in that heightened space. Like when you're really going through it mentally, going through the scenarios in your head, in your feelings, anger, grieving, whatever the circumstance is. The first thing I've done to make better decisions is increase my emotional intelligence. That means recognizing when I was feeling feelings at a very heightened state. We're always feeling feelings. So feelings aren't going to go completely away, and they shouldn't. We're human. But you have to have enough emotional intelligence to know that I'm in my feelings right now. So it's not safe for me to make any decisions. Right. And so she wanted to go out to lunch, and she took me out to lunch, and we had another conversation, and she wanted to apologize, and she wanted to continue the friendship. right? And I was in a healthy place because I had allowed my emotions to level out. I heard her out, and I moved forward and I made my decision, which my decision was not to continue with the friendship, but I did it from a healthy place, right? I didn't like just end the friendship when I was at the height of my emotions. I thought through it, right? So first things first, you want to become a better decision maker, you must increase your EQ. You must have high emotional intelligence. Super important. Super important. Okay. 100%. Okay. So let me tell you something else that I do to make better decisions. And this has served me so well throughout the years, especially as an entrepreneur. And that is, you have to clear the channel. You have to get all of the static out of the channel. What does that mean? You have to have mental clarity to make hard decisions. Some of us are functioning every day off of sugar, caffeine, food dyes. We don't have self control over what we put in our body. And as a result of that, we don't have self control over our mind. So, a lot of us, unfortunately, because of our unhealthy relationship with food, we have a lot of hyperactivity in our brain. When you consume a lot of refined processed sugar, a lot of caffeine, MSG, ultra processed food that has food dyes in it, all of that stuff is linked to hyperactivity. Okay. And so, those things are called excitotoxins. It is nearly impossible to make a sound decision if you are constantly hyped up on caffeine and sugar and MSG and food dyes. If you're constantly clogging your body and your brain with cholesterol and saturated fat, I promise you, you do not think clearly. There's no two ways about it. I've tried to think clearly when I had junk in my body, and I've tried to think clearly when when I was eating clean, and it's a huge difference, major difference. When you're constantly drinking alcohol, all of that impairs your decision making. So the second thing that I personally do to create conditions to make tough decisions so that I can avoid chronic stress is I clear the channel. I stop consuming anything that compromises my mental clarity. Those of you who have unhealthy relationships with your food, this is going to be challenging because you're going to have to go through withdrawals. You're going to have to go through detox. But if you're trying to make a decision about your marriage, if you're trying to make a decision about your career, if you're trying to make a decision about whether or not to move into another city, if you're trying to make a decision about your children, if you're trying to make a decision about your health, guys, you got to do it from a healthy mental state. And you can't do it eating all that fast food, junk food, smoking, drinking, sugar, caffeine. That is not the best place. That is not the optimal condition to make the best decision. So we got to clear the channels. We got to clear the channels. A couple years ago when we were launching our business accelerator and our plant-based coaching certification in our company, I had a goal that I wanted to achieve over the course of about 5 weeks. And I realized that I needed to be super clean because I had to create really good content and I had to make really good marketing decisions to launch this new program. And I remember I was like, oh, I'm not touching no junk. I'm giving up all the mess. I'm letting go of oil. I was already vegan, so that was easy. So I wasn't eating all the cholesterol and the saturated fat that you get from animal products. But I was like, no, I'm not alcohol. No, I'm not doing any ultra processed food. I'm not eating my popcorn. I'm not eating potato chip. I'm not, none of it. Right. Because I needed to be mentally clear to make good business decisions. And I think that is one thing that a lot of us underestimate when we have to make decisions to move forward in a certain area of our life is that, are you even thinking clearly? Do you have the mental clarity, or are your thoughts all over the place? Do you feel like it's just jumbled in there? Do you feel like you got everything going 100 miles per hour in your mind? It's probably because you have hyperactivity, and that hyperactivity is partially caused by your diet. So you got to clear the channels. Got to clear the channels. The second way I clear the channels is through movement. Through movement. So another way to get mental clarity, y'all, is you have to move your body. Some of the best decision making happens in the gym or in nature, outside, walking a trail, walking along water. That is one of the best ways to clear your mind so that you can have sound thought, so you can organize your thoughts, right? So clear the channels through diet and through exercise. I get some of my best content ideas when I'm outside walking. I was outside this morning for about an hour and a half, walking on the water, thinking, moving forward and things. So super important. Okay, let's get into the third thing I do. Okay, so first, we allow our decisions to level out. We practice EQ and we never make decisions at a heightened state of emotion. Next, we clear the channels. We get all of the static out of our brain. We allow mental clarity in by eliminating all of the junk that causes hyperactivity in the mind, right? The next thing is really, really dope, which is visualization. So sometimes when we have really hard decisions to make, and they scare us a little bit, which is part of the reason why a lot of us are chronically stressed out. Is because the decisions that we need to make scare the heck out of us, right? They scare the absolute heck out of us. And so one of the ways you can combat the fear that might creep up when you got to think about making a decision in your marriage or in your friendships or in your finances is visualizing the outcome that you desire, right? So I do this every single time I have a speaking engagement. So every time I have to speak, the very first thing that comes up in my mind is I picture myself on the stage or on the panel. I picture myself being interviewed by somebody if it's going to be like a fireside chat style. I picture myself on the mic doing the keynote. I picture what I'm wearing. I picture the audience being locked in and engaged. I picture the applause. I picture them laughing at my jokes. Anytime I have to have a difficult conversation with somebody that I love, I picture us having that conversation in a loving manner, right? I picture the outcome. I picture us hugging at the end. I picture us talking through the thing, right? When it comes to finances, when it comes to investing in myself, I visualize the outcome that I want. How many of you guys are tapping into visualization? It is a powerful, powerful tool. It's one of the most powerful tools to manifesting. So if you want a healthy outcome for your career decision, picture yourself in that new role or picture yourself starting your business. What does that look like? What are you selling? How are you selling it, right? What platforms are you on? Picture yourself, picture customers and people saying yes to you. Picture your proposal getting accepted. Envision the email that says congratulations. Like, the visualization is so dope. One of the best places to do visualization is in meditation. So I meditate every single day. It's a mindfulness practice that I've been using for years to stay grounded. And that's one of the best places to activate visualization, right? I write out the things I want to come to fruition and I visualize them coming to fruition. So at tapping into visualization, if you're scared, picture, don't dwell on it not going right. Spend some time channeling energy into it going exactly how you want, right? Sometimes because we have a sophistication bias, and a lot of us, we have, just as humans, we have a negative bias, right? We focus so much on how things could go wrong that we don't often give enough energy to them going exactly how we want them to go. So tap into visualization, tap into it. Come on, Coach Dana. Coach Dana said, I love this comment. Oh man, Coach Dana, I love that so much. She said, I visualize my new home and I'm standing in it now. Oh, I love that so much because it is so powerful to be able to see and be living the thing that you imagined, right? And so we absolutely must see it first and we have to intentionally see it, right? And so visualization helps me to make better decisions. It helps me move through a fearful decision. Helps me move through a fearful decision, visualizing how I want that thing to turn out and how I want it to go. Okay, super powerful. Let me give you a few more things, a few more ways I create conditions for good decision making. Another one is, now, this matches my personality type, right? And so I'm type A all day long, right? I'm more introverted all day long. And so I like to do a little modest amount of research. Now, I have to put emphasis on modest here, okay? Underline, asterisk the word modest. Y'all, do not research yourself into no decision making. But because some of us, the research is too overwhelming. But depending on what type of decision I'm trying to make, I will do research to get some pros, some cons, to see some examples of what I'm looking for. So, for example, I'm going to give you guys a quick example. We are preparing to launch Clarity, our community dedicated to eliminating chronic stress. And this is the third iteration of Clarity, right? So I've taught Clarity for the past 2 years, and we're preparing to launch it for the third time. And we've never launched it in this way before. It's always been closed mastermind style communities. And this time, for the first time, it's going to be an open community. And it's an indefinite evergreen community, right? So before, when I taught Clarity, it was for whatever time I designated. The first time, I think I taught it for 6 months. The second time, I did it for a year. And this is going to be the third iteration of Clarity. And so as I was visualizing how I want the community to look and how I want it to operate, I instantly started thinking of a model, another company who I might have wanted to model our community after, right? Because y'all know how much I believe in possibility models. And so that other community came to my mind right away. And so instantly I started doing research on how they run their community. I started doing research on their business model. Now, this other community, they've been around since 2003. They've been around for a very long time, over 20 years. And I've followed that community for many years. I admire it a lot. It's a community dedicated to personal development. And so I decided that I wanted to research their model and get an idea of how they've been able to have such a successful community over so many decades so that we can do the same thing. So I did a modest amount of research. Here's what I didn't do. I didn't do so much research that I allowed myself to be paralyzed by options, right? So you have to know thyself. Some of us cannot afford to do research because we get into rabbit holes that we never come out of. But one of the things that helps sometimes to make decisions is having a possibility model to model your decision after. So this could be a human, this could be another business. It could be possibility models could look a multitude of ways, but that's one of the best ways to get an idea of how you want to move forward when you have a big decision to make. I knew we had to change our business model based on the state of the world and the way things were going. And I knew I wanted to lean into community more. And so I needed a model for that. And so as we prepare to launch this next iteration of Clarity, I feel so confident in the path that we're on because I've had research. I've done modest amount of research to get more insight on how to do what I'm doing. And so modest amount of research can be really helpful as long as you aren't prone to analysis paralysis. Okay, I got 3 more for y'all. I know I had this many. Anybody do modest amount of research? Has anybody ever got into analysis paralysis? Just put me in the chat if if you made a mistake and did research one day and you still ain't made a decision yet. You started doing research a year ago on something. You started doing research 6 months ago on something. You started doing research 5 years ago on something. You still ain't wrote the book. You still ain't started the thing. You still ain't did it. I would love to know. You started researching plant-based, still eating chicken. Like that. We ain't talking about those type of research. That type of research. We got to do better with our research. We got to have self-control because we know we live in an information age, honey, and the information will certainly confuse us more if we let it, okay? Tamika and Dana said, I'm telling you. So that stuff ain't for everybody. You got to have some self-control. So you got to know yourself, okay? Yep, Shanita, 100%. Okay, so let's get into the last 2. I think 2 or 3 I have left, okay? 2 or 3 I have left. So go to the source. The next way I make decisions is going directly to the source, which is God, which is prayer, right? And so I remember I was listening to this podcast one time, y'all, right? And I was listening to this podcast with Dawn Weaver was being interviewed, right? The founder of Uncle Nearest, right? And which is a whiskey company. And she's the only Black founder of a whiskey company. And so she, was all the rage when she opened up her business many years ago, and a phenomenal story, and a phenomenal woman, by the way. And I remember hearing her say during this interview, she said, there's a prayer that I pray every time I'm trying to figure out a way forward. And the prayer was, God, if this is for me, please open the door in such a way that it cannot be closed. And if this is not for me, please close the door in such a way that it cannot be opened. Right. And I was like, I like it. Give it to me, snatchies, right? And so I adopted that prayer. And so anytime I'm in the midst of trying to make a decision about how to move forward with something or someone or whatever it is, I've said that prayer. And let me tell you what happened the very first time I used this prayer. It was about several years ago. I was in a relationship and I prayed that prayer about this person. And I'm like, God, if he's for me, please open the door in such a way that it cannot be closed. And if he's not for me, please close the door in such a way that it cannot be open. And the very next day, less than 24 hours, we were over. God is so good. I'm like, Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Like, wow, that was speedy, super speedy. Like, I was like, wow. And so I've been using that prayer ever since. So anyone who needs it, you can take that with you. But go to the source. Right? Go to the source. Now, here's the key though. For a lot of us, prayer is pretty easy. That's not the hard part of this step. The hard part is doing what you're told after you pray. The hard part is surrendering to the outcome of the prayer. That's the hard part for a lot of us, is surrendering to the outcome of the prayer. And so if you're not ready for whatever is going to be on the other side of that, tread very carefully, because it doesn't take long for God to answer prayers. It usually takes long for humans to surrender to the answer. And so be very careful with, being willing to pray, but being unwilling to surrender. Okay. That's a very dangerous place to be. And then piggybacking right off of that, another tool that I use to make decisions is after going to the source, if necessary, I go to the resource, which is wise counsel. Okay. God is the source, right? And then the people we have relationships with and connections to are the resource. And so, oftentimes, if I've had a mentor or a coach in my life who I trust and I feel like they have a level of expertise or mastery around the decision I'm trying to make, then I go to them and I say, what do you think about this? Here's what I'm thinking. Here's how I'm thinking about moving forward. Can you give me maybe some blind spots that I'm not? Can you identify some blind spots that I might be missing? Like, what are you hearing when I tell you how I'm planning on moving forward in this decision? So I go to the source first. And if necessary, I then go to a resource, which is a mentor or a coach or a friend or someone who I believe has mastery, clarity, experience in this particular area, right? So that is so important. Wise counsel, seeking wise counsel. We're instructed to seek wise counsel. Okay. And then the final two things that I've used to make decisions is, number one, if you're a person who is kind of a stickler about the way you communicate, one thing that has really helped for me is writing out what I want to say, especially if it involves another human. So if your tough decision involves a difficult conversation, one of the best things you can do to help yourself make the decision and move forward is write out what you want to say and how you want to articulate your feelings, your thoughts, your ideas to this other person. Because when emotions and other humans are involved, sometimes we lose our thoughts. We lose our train of thoughts. We lose how we show up in the conversation. And so it's always healthy to write things out first. And sometimes you can communicate through writing, right? It doesn't even have to be a verbal conversation you have to have, but communicating through writing can really help to move things forward. If it's sometimes hard for you to have a difficult conversation with other individuals. So writing out my thoughts and my ideas have helped in the past. And then the very, very final thing is get quiet and wait. If I need to make a decision, and I've went to God, I've went to the resource. Sometimes it's just a waiting period. So remember early on in today's conversation, I told you guys that I went to my coach many years ago to ask her about how I should move forward with a program in our business. And she was telling me how to create the conditions to make a decision. And one of the things that she said is go isolate yourself. Go isolate yourself and figure out and just spend some time, meditate with it, pray on it, just sit with it and see what comes out of that isolation. And so I did that. I went and I rented a room at a hotel not far from my home, and I went for about 2 nights, and I just got quiet and I waited. Right, I just thought through all the alternatives that I had so that I could make a decision. Right, get quiet and wait. Like, don't rush to hard decisions. But the other thing I'll tell you, it's kind of a catch-22. Don't rush to a decision, but don't delay decision making. Right. And I hope that resonates. Some of us, and this will depend on your natural pace. So here's why because I'm teaching you guys my process for making decisions. Here's why I get quiet and wait. It's because naturally I am a fast mover. My pace naturally is to go really quickly. Some of you listening, you're the opposite. You're naturally a slower paced individual. There's no right or wrong when it comes to pace. But what I need you to know is when it comes to your decision making, if you naturally move quickly, it will benefit you to slow down. If you naturally move slower, it will benefit you to speed up, right? And give yourself a deadline from coming to a decision or scheduling that conversation or whatever the next step is for you. But naturally, because I tend to move quicker naturally, guys, I have to get quiet and wait. I have to work hard to pump the brakes, because once I have an idea or a decision, I'm swift, like super swift. And so this is my process because of my natural personality style. You have to edit it for what your natural pace is. Okay. So let's review before we get out of here. And then Melissa, I got you. I'm gonna answer your question. And then if there's any other questions, drop them in the chat. I want to pull them up and I want to answer questions based on decision making, because a lot of you are stressed out and overwhelmed, not because you need to be, but because you're avoiding a decision, you're delaying a decision. And I would love for you guys to get on the other side of chronic stress, get on the other side of overwhelm. And for many of you, that just starts with making decisions. It starts with making decisions. So if there's any questions or anything you want me to expound on, drop it in the chat. Melissa, you'll be up first. Here is the recap. How I make hard decisions to avoid chronic stress. How I make hard decisions to avoid chronic stress. First, I allow my emotions to level out, not go away. Not go away. That's not possible. We're humans. We're supposed to be emotional. However, it's oftentimes not healthy to make decisions in a heightened state of emotion. So first, I rein in my emotions and I wait until they have come down a little bit, and I make sure I activate my emotional intelligence. Number 2, I clear the channel. I get really clear, right? So I'm eating right and I'm moving right. I make sure there's no brain fog as a result of sugar and caffeine and alcohol and ultra processed food and all of the stuff that makes us sluggish, makes us fatigued, and gives us hyperactivity in the brain, right? So I get mental clarity through movement and through a healthy diet. The next thing is visualization. I actually see myself doing the thing that I want to do as a result of this decision. I see the outcome that I prefer, right? I visualize it. I spend some time with it in my mind, right? I do this through meditation. I visualize the outcome I want. Then, if necessary, I do a modest amount of research. And so making sure that I don't allow for analysis paralysis, but I get enough information to help me move forward and take that next step. Next, I go to the source. I go to God with it, y'all. I give it to God. I pray about it. And if necessary, I go to a resource, which is going to be a mentor or a coach or a friend or my mom or whatever, to better understand maybe some blind spots, some things that I'm not seeing or that I'm not considering that I hadn't thought of. There's nothing like having somebody identify your blind spots, right? So wise counsel. Then I write what I want to say if necessary, right? If this decision involves someone else and I want to make sure I articulate my thoughts and my feelings in a healthy way that's going to make for healthy communication and I'm not talking from emotion, then I sometimes write down my thoughts and my ideas and finally get quiet and wait. And this is for me because I naturally move very quickly and I've over the years had to control my pace because my natural pace is really fast. So that's how I create conditions for good decision making to occur. Hope that was helpful, y'all. Let me get into, I see Malika's question and I see Melissa said, what'd you say, Melissa? Can we repeat the prayer? So I got you. I got you. Melissa says, let's look at it here. What's that again? God, if this is for me, open the door so that it cannot be closed. And if this is not for me, close the door so it cannot be opened. Melissa, that is 100% correct. That's exactly the prayer. So use it. And if it works for you, thank goodness. Thank goodness. I love it. I hope it works for you. But remember that prayer is the easy part. Surrendering to the answer is the hard part. So if the God decides to close the door, now you got to follow suit because you asked for an answer. You asked for direction. Okay. So good. Okay. Let's see. Malika says, what's the best way to identify that we're experiencing analysis paralysis? Okay. So one way is, first of all, we usually know ourselves, Malika. We usually know ourselves and when we're doing too much, right? So I would say, are you still taking steps in the midst of learning new information, right? Are you still moving forward in the midst of learning new information? Now, I don't know necessarily how you might identify whether or not you're experiencing analysis paralysis, but I will tell you how to avoid it, which is don't research too far into the future, right? And so sometimes if you depending on what you're tackling, one of the best ways to do a modest amount of research without letting it overwhelm you is to research simply the next step, make a decision on that, and then research the next thing. So for example, if it's like a product, like with this community, for example, with Clarity, one of the things we needed to research was the platform that we were going to use to host the community. So we only do research on the platforms that we're going to use. We make a decision. We decided on a platform. Now we can research the next step. So one of the ways to avoid analysis paralysis is don't research too much at once. Research only for the step that you're on in the decision. Make that decision. So we decided on a platform, Kiwi and I, and then we secured the platform, right? And next we're like, okay, now let's look at pricing models. Now let's look at, offerings. I got to make a decision on who I'm going to bring into the community. Every step had its own modest amount of research, and I didn't allow myself to research more or move on until I made a decision on the step I was on, right? And so everything one step at a time, and as opposed to doing really broad and deep research that gives you too many ideas. And now you're looking at, oh my God, what platform should I use? What marketing channel should I use? What pricing model should I use? Right? All of these different things, and it becomes too much. So I would recommend researching based on the step that you're on. Good question, Malika. Any other questions? Man, okay, great. I don't see any other questions. You guys are so phenomenal. Who's going to go out and make a decision to eliminate some chronic stress today or to avoid chronic stress because you have a circumstance in your life that's at risk of being escalated? That's at risk of escalation. Because this is how I've noticed that we're able to avoid stress for a lot of people is we got to become better decision makers, but we first got to create conditions to make good decisions, right? So any final comments or takeaways? I'll wait a second while you guys do that. I told you guys that we're soon going to be launching our next iteration of Clarity, our community dedicated to optimizing your physical health and eliminating chronic stress. We're super excited to walk you through the process of, creating an exit strategy, creating an enter strategy, and creating an engagement strategy in order to eliminate chronic stress. Optimizing your physical health is where we start because we don't believe you can move very far if you're not feeling your best physically, mentally, and emotionally. So we optimize your physical health, and then we go on to help you create the exit from chronic stress. And so if you're interested in being in our community, Clarity, I just dropped the link in the chat for you to get on the wait list. All you got to do is get on the wait list. No other requirements right now. But if you're like, I want to learn more, I need to be in the ecosystem that can help me make decisions, that can help me move forward, then that would be the place to start. So click the link in the chat to get on the wait list for Clarity. Oh, y'all, thank you, Dana. Thank you, Malika. Y'all said this was so good. I love y'all for that. Thank you. Lachey said, I want to make a decision. Super afraid, though, to be honest. Oh, that's okay. Being afraid is totally okay. Matter of fact, Lachey, you probably did because you're here pretty regularly. But I did a episode not too long ago about the truth about fear, right? The truth about fear. So let me see. I don't know if we dropped it on the podcast yet. Let me check really quickly for you because I'll drop it in the chat right now. Give me 1 second, Lachey. Let me look and see. Did we drop the episode that I taught about fear? Because being afraid is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with being afraid. Fear just can't delay your decision making. No, we didn't drop it on the podcast yet, but it's here on my YouTube channel. So I'll need to find that for you. Let me see. I think I'm in here. I taught not too long ago about it's called The Truth About Fear. And I think maybe, yep, here it is. I found it, Lachey. Let me share it with you and drop it in the chat for you. And maybe this can help those of you who are also feeling kind of paralyzed by fear because it's a really tough decision you need to make. Then this Monday morning keynote that I did several weeks ago will be so super helpful. Oh, you're welcome, Melissa. Okay, there you go, Lachey. I just dropped it in the comments here. Watch that. I know you were probably even on doing that one, but now that you have a circumstance that's, not like that you're actively trying to navigate, re-listening to this episode might be super helpful. So The Truth About Fear. So grab that link for yourself, and I hope it blesses you. Okay, I don't see any other questions. You guys are great. Okay, so I'll see you guys back here next Monday for a regular Monday morning keynote with yours truly, your favorite health and business coach. Listen, guys, get super excited. Clarity is launching soon. Make sure you're on the wait list. You'll be notified first and foremost. And sometimes that comes with perks. Hint, hint. So get on the wait list for Clarity. And we look forward to inviting you guys into the community. Until next Monday, guys. You guys have a phenomenal week. Bye, y'all.